the best second story man in the business, meaning that he constantly repeats his stories. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. No choice. We're going to get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for telling friend. Mayhem in here. We're going to do some news coming up. I got stuff to talk about. Okay. I watch TV, and I watch the commercials, as everyone knows. And there's a new commercial they keep running for Volvo, which is, first off, the wives are hot, and they never disagree with what the dude's doing. You know what I mean? I've never met this woman. You know, the hot chick with the sensible haircut who just agrees with everything all the time. The guy is in the Volvo. He's got the Volvo SUV, and they put all the kids in it, and they're going to the snow. They're going for a day of snowboarding, and then as he's driving up the mountain, he sees it starting to rain, and they're essentially getting rained out, and he stops, and he hits the button, which is like, you know, ultra hybrid mileage button, and he just looks at the wife, and she looks at him, and she smiles, and they turn around, and they go to the beach. Now, first off, that's going to be a full fucking argument on the side of the road, because no woman I've ever met went, oh, now we're going to the beach, because she's got mittens and jeans and a sweater and a parka. She didn't bring her bathing. That would be a discussion, but the guy just gives her a look, and she gives a knowing nod, and then they go to the beach. But the fakest thing about every car commercial, and I've seen car commercials where the Mini Cooper launches off the pier and like turns into a submarine. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff in car commercials. But the thing that's least believable is where they get to park the car at the beach. They pull the car right on to, they'll pull that fucking thing right out onto the jetty and just park it perpendicular to the water. Like they park it, and then they all get out and they all just go have fun out on the pier. Parking at the beach is one long fucking conversation. No, sir, no, you're not. That's a bike zone. Turn around. Could you imagine in Southern California, you just going, we're going to the beach. We're just going to pull right up to the sand, and we'll drive onto that cement jetty, and we'll just park in the middle of it. Could you imagine? You would be hogtied and beaten by the police. Like,
or at least like a black lady wearing sensible shoes will go, oh, no, you don't.
Excuse you. Yeah, it's a Volvo. It's the latest Volvo wagon commercial, but it's they always, the phoniest part about every car commercial is where they get to park. They pull right out into the sand and just park, and then B, what they get to do, because they're starting a campfire at night. You know, there'll be none of that.
I thought the phoniest part of the commercial was the amicable girlfriend.
It is the wife who it's the wife.
The wife who's just down for whatever.
Well, the wife in a 10-second span realizes she's not going to the top of the mountain to go snowboarding. She, in fact, is going to the beach, and doesn't give the guy an earful of the kids don't have their water wings. We don't have bathing suits. Everyone's wearing bib overalls and ski gear, and we got nothing. So what are you talking about? The commercial, I think it's the only Volvo commercial that's really running right now.
I'm trying to live my life in a Volvo commercial where everything just goes smooth and works out for me all the time.
There's the one where the dad like is writing a letter to his daughter, but they always get to park wherever they want. I'll show it to you. Everyone thinks they're going. This is why I can't watch a commercial. I'm angry.
You got to suspend your disbelief, Ace.
Well, okay. If in fact they're going to the mountains to go skiing, then why?
Wait, they're going to Big Bear down to Venice Beach? Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, that's the strategy I would take.
I don't know. We'll see if we can see. Anyway, they're going to the mountains to go skiing, and then they turn around and they end up at the beach. Let's see if we can see this. This is probably not it, but let's look at it anyway.
Oh, okay.
I'm just watching this for my own amusement, just because this is a Volvo commercial. That I will give you. I would describe it as one where the couple goes furniture shopping. I wouldn't. Okay. All right.
Byron, you even watched the video and you just click
Oh,
on
no,
Volvo.
wait. It keeps going.
Oh, here we go.
It's another Volvo commercial.
no, yeah.
Okay, here it is. All right.
Man,
It starts to rain.
yeah.
All right, go back 20 seconds. This is what you can go back 20 seconds. It's what I speak of. Okay, they're going to the mountains. Starts snowing, or starts raining. He turns around, looks at his wife. She looks at him like she knows what the fuck he's doing. And next thing you know, they're on the beach. But look where they park. Look where they park. They would never let you park that way at the beach.
Gavin Newsom will be in the pro
Oh,
position.
my
with
God. He'd have snipers,
Sniper rifles.
snipers on the lifeguard towers. And where'd the kid get the bathing suit? Why does the kid have the bathing suit?
I don't know.
They're going to the snow.
They're going to the hot tub at the resort.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Big ballin' ass Volvo owners.
All right, here's a question for everybody. Spiders have always been a part of my life when it comes to living in Southern California.
As they are.
Every house, always a spider, always something with the spider on the ceiling or the webs at the cobweb or something like that. Spiders. I haven't seen a spider in like 3 months. Something's going on. Something's going on. I don't know if it's the fires. I don't know what happened, but I went back to my condo in Malibu the other day. That place has not been inhabited in 3 months. There's zero. There's no cobwebs. There's no spiders. There's no nothing.
That makes sense to me.
I've been like renting. Yeah, because I think the fires took out all the spiders, right?
Well, yeah, and all the bugs around, so there's nothing to eat. You know, the spiders need to eat little bugs. That's their whole strategy. So if there's no little bugs, damn.
Okay, no spiders. But there's no. I'm renting a place in Burbank. It's someone else's like townhouse or something. I keep looking around. There's always that spider somewhere.
There's no food for like other bugs to eat.
But now I'm in Burbank and there's no spiders.
No spiders in Burbank?
I'm just saying there used to be spiders around in this building now and again. I don't know if everyone else is experiencing this non-spider phenomenon, but spiders have always kind of been around. You know, you're watching TV at night, and so you look, oh, yeah, there's a spider up
Just
there.
let 'em live.
You get the cup and throw them outside. That's what I do. But I'm just saying, I've not seen spiders.
Oh, man.
It's been a while. It's been like 3 months.
The ecosystem has collapsed because of the fires.
I don't know. I'm not saying they've been eradicated. I'm just saying they're not a thing.
I get plenty in my area, so
You do?
I'm always cupping one, grabbing one, smashing one. In fact, I smashed a centipede the other day after I got my eyes dilated, so I couldn't even see which direction he was going. I had to get a tip. Which way was he facing, left or right?
Well, you can't tell with the centipede. Was it a centipede?
It was a centipede, millipede. I don't know which one had more legs. Had a boatload. I smashed them good.
Was it real hairy ones?
Yep, quick jab, bing, and smashed him before he got away.
I don't know what those things. They're unique to the Hollywood area.
They
I used
eat
to have
roaches, apparently, and that means we got roaches.
You know, let me say something. Everyone tries to make some sort of sob story about why this insect is good because he eats the bad ones.
Whatever.
You know, they go, well, that one's good because they eat the roaches, so you want those ones. I've never turned on my kitchen light my entire life and seen an insect helping me. I've never turned on a light and see a spider kicking the shit out of a roach and me going, yeah, good, go Charlotte.
You know what, though?
Go get him.
But you ain't got much experience gardening, do you? Because
No.
I do. Like gardening, when you're growing stuff, you want to eradicate any pest, and you don't mind. You know, you're in strange bedfellows because you'll get some ugly ass bugs to eat the bugs that will eat your crops.
You know what are the craziest bugs ever if you grow tomatoes? Those weird tomato
bug?
Yeah.
Nightmare. Get some aphids.
Crazy.
Get some aphids. Just let them run wild out there. They'll eat them. You know?
Yeah.
Ladybugs all day.
They sold ladybugs, and they would also sell praying mantises.
Oh, yeah. That's fun, huh?
I like a bug. I like a Venus flytrap and or a praying mantis.
All right, just so you know, Venus flytrap is a plant.
I know.
Oh, okay.
But it eats bugs.
Yeah.
I just love the idea that you got a plant that's on a meat-based diet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nature's awesome.
It is.
Yeah, just out of nowhere, just digesting a full insects.
The other thing I was thinking about was I watched this clip of a panda. I think a lot about panda bears. And every once in a while, someone will send me a clip, like a montage of like pandas falling over and trying to climb a tree and then falling out of the tree.
Yeah.
Like they're like lazy, drunk uncles. And so this panda, it's great. It's a great clip. We'll put it up at adamcarolla.com. Panda tries to sit in a wooden chair.
It's so wholesome and adorable.
And he leans back and he falls over and he eats shit, right? So then later on, the same panda just drags this wooden chair and throws it in a ravine of his cage. He throws it in the moat that goes around. Okay, so he's angry at the chair.
They're just like us.
Okay, here's what I was thinking. And then they have all these montages of pandas just falling off of chairs, trying to do shit, falling off, getting their head stuck in a bucket and stuff like that. So they're useless.
They're
right?
cute, man.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like other animals are agile and can climb trees and can do things.
Yeah.
They can't do anything. And then I realized, oh, they're like big fat welfare queens. Like we tell them, stay put, we'll bring money to you. You don't have to do anything. And before you know it, they just get like fat and lazy and
Apex
angry.
lounger.
They're apex loungers. Like we say to pandas, you don't have to do anything.
No.
They'll barely.
We'll bring the bamboo to you. You know, I will chew it up for you and spit it in your mouth.
They won't even fuck. They're so lazy. They're the only animal that won't fuck.
We'll chub you up and then stick it in.
I'm telling you, there's something called panda porn that we would show them.
I know.
Oh, because every other animal can't. You get a dog, the dog's fucking a throw pillow in front of the company. You know what I mean? Every animal is down to fuck. Pandas are not. And they're lazy and they know, yeah, they're apex
Loungers.
loungers.
They just, like, kick
And so
back.
they just lay around. But it's what happens when you bring everything to everyone. They just get fat and lazy and angry. And and entitled. It's just like the welfare queen who's just bitching about not getting enough from the government or fuck this or where's my money or where are my food stamps or how dare you take orange soda. Kennedy Jr. wants to make me not be able to buy pineapple soda and cool cigarettes off my SNAP program. Fuck him.
Bitch is eating too much bamboo.
Right? That's what pandas are. It's a little lesson in life, everyone. This is what you have. Somebody made that panda a chair. Somebody took
I thought that was from Home Goods. It looked like a classy joint.
It was nicely constructed.
Yeah.
And the and presented it to the panda.
Yeah.
And then the panda sat in it because the panda is fat and doesn't have to work for a living and has no skills. The panda sits in the chair, leans back, falls over, blames it on the chair, probably angry at the person who brought him the chair, and then says, fuck you in your chair offering and throws it in a ravine. This is a metaphor, people, for why we cannot bail everyone out with free lunch programs.
Got to stop giving them chairs, I guess.
They got to learn to hunt. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Boo. Yeah. They're in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts has knowledgeable, helpful, friendly folks who work there who know their way around the parts that they're selling you. I've gone to O'Reilly for many, many years, back when I used to wrench on my own cars constantly, back before, all this highfalutin computer BS. I was out there grabbing spark plugs and fan belts and doing it all. So, their people are friendly, and they know their stuff. And whether you're a car aficionado or an auto novice, you'll find employees at O'Reilly are knowledgeable, and most of all, they're friendly. So stop by. the auto parts store today, known as O'Reilly, and you can visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. That is O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. Hydro, love these guys. I got to tell you, my hydro is in Malibu, and I've been displaced for 3 months now, and I'm missing my hydro. Yeah, I put my weight vest on and walk around the neighborhood that I'm at now, but it's not the hydro. That thing is great. It looks like a modern piece of furniture. And, yeah, you can hit the gym, but people talk about hitting the gym way more than they actually hit the gym because it takes a while. Just parking alone takes a while at the gym. Hydro, it's right there. Hop on it, 20 minutes, and you're working out. I think it's like 86% of your muscles. It's not like running on the treadmill where your upper half isn't doing anything but watching TV. Now, hydro, 20 minutes, 86% of your muscles, and it's fun too. It's like it's almost a sport. Gives you something to do. So whether you're training for a marathon or just trying to stay in shape, hydro meets you where you're at. This is a great piece of equipment. Right, Dawson?
Kick off the new year with a full body workout, all from the comfort of home with Hydro. Head over to hydro.com and use code Adam to save up to.
I don't know what. By the way, what did pandas do in the wild? Because they literally sit and fall over even when they're just sitting.
I think their strategy is to be the biggest, scariest thing in the woods, but then just look like that and never have to do anything.
All right. Well, I got other stuff to talk about. There's a funny clip. Well, I don't know if it's funny to people, but it's funny to me. There's a Kamala Harris clip where she was talking to the woman's auxiliary, whatever. I don't know. There's all these things where, like, there's the women's action committee and stuff, and it's just women sitting around talking to women. I would be the worst woman. I would be a horrible woman. And I would be a horrible minority because the second somebody went like, as a black woman of God, I'd go, okay, I'm fucking bored. I'm bored. Let's go do something. I don't want to sit around and talk about having ovaries with the rest of humanity. They're more than 50% of the Earth's population. How many fucking meetings do we need to have? You're the majority. Stop it. Get the fuck on with it. Whatever it is you're doing, go do it. Why do you have to keep having me? Today, we honor Meryl Streep. She's going to speak over here, and then Jodie Foster's going to speak. Okay, bitches, keep talking. Just keep talking. About what? Oh, we got a march. We got a million-woman march.
Oh, man, on Women's History
And
Month?
what do you guys want? I don't know. You got it. You got everything you need. You're good. You live longer than we do. You get a break on your auto insurance. There's more of you in college than there are of me. So you're good now. You're good. Turn the page. How about you fucking go make some vittles? Fry up some vittles. Vittles.
Patting her ass, putting her in the kitchen, Ace?
Yes, go do something.
All right.
Well, come on. But she's basically giving a speech about the end of the world and the end of democracy, because we didn't elect a drunken retard Indian lady, so it's the end of democracy. But it's just, she punctuates it with something that's funny.
There is a sense of fear that has been taking hold in our country.
Mm.
And I understand it. But we're saying people stay quiet.
Like who?
We
Name
are
me
seeing
one person that stays
organizations
quiet.
stay quiet.
I wish you bitches would stay
We are
quiet.
seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear.
Fear. Everyone's afraid. Afraid of
Because,
what?
there were many things that we knew would happen.
Hold on a second. This is all one
Why is she so afraid? She's wearing a pirate shirt.
All I see is footage of like young people on the hoods of cop cars jumping up and down, trying to kick in the windshield while the cops sit in the car scared to roll forward. I'm not seeing the fear. What fear is it she speaks of as you just go and desecrate another Tesla or fucking dump a bucket of water on a cop's head? Like, what is the fear part? I'm not feeling the fear, but all right. I wish there was a little more fear. But roll it back 10 seconds because she's talking about a lot of fear. And here we go.
Creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Now, every fight I lost, they took the mic away from me.
Good.
She's in every mic in the damn nation, huh?
I swore I wasn't going to say that.
There's another 30 seconds
Who
of
is
her.
she speaking to?
She's
The
just
swinging
laughing.
black caucus?
It's the big swinging black caucus. She just keeps laughing and laughing and laughing. Now, what I'm saying is if it's the end of our democracy and we have Hitler and Mussolini in the White House and everyone is living in fear and journalists are going to be rounded up and sent to Nicaragua, what's with the big laugh? Like, what I'm saying is
A lot of tension relief.
what if I just told everybody, listen, you're going to have to make me head of the CIA because I'm telling you, let's go back to the year 2000.
I want to see Ace the G-Man, yeah.
Go back, let's just say it's the year 1999.
All right.
And I go, hey, you people need to make me head of the CIA because I'm going to thwart some terrorist plots because I'm telling you, somebody's going to take a commercial airliner or two and fly it into those Twin Towers, and we're going to lose a lot of lives. And then you didn't vote me in to be head of the CIA. And then 2 months after the planes hit and took down both Twin Towers, I got up and gave a speech and went, hey, I told you to vote me in for head of the CIA. I told you those planes would go down. I told you those towers were going to go down. Wouldn't I be a bad person
Your
if
laughter
I
is
laughed?
incongruent.
Yes, wouldn't I be a bad person if I was laughing super hard?
I know. It's
So-
a big dog and pony show, Ace.
Right, but does she think? You wouldn't laugh that hard if you really thought people were being rounded up and losing their rights and Hitler.
She's like, oh, I...
They're competing thoughts. You gave 2 minutes on fear, and now you're cackling your ass off. And the room is all laughing.
yeah,
so
yeah. She don't
how
even
much
believe it.
fear are we talking about
Yeah,
here?
yeah,
Because I know there is a fear, but it's not usually followed by busting up the room.
She did like a fear. She was like doing an ad read for fear, but then broke in the middle of it. Yeah.
Play the last. I want to hear the audience was laughing their ass off.
Everybody
too.
laughed,
So why
yeah.
are they so? Why aren't they fearful? Is what I'm saying.
Things
Sorry.
that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Hold on. They make the same sound that Oprah's audience
That's what I was-
made when they gave them cars. You get a car. You woo! All right, go back 36. I want to hear a little fear talk. Why are they laughing?
And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
I ain't gonna get in there. I told you so. Yeah, I know.
She's
yeah.
laughing her ass off, and so's the audience.
District attorney.
All right. It's all funny. The news guys are laughing too. I'm not buying into the fear thing. Everyone's having a fucking good time. I don't think you guys are fearful. Now, listen, I'm not fearful, but I also don't think Elon Musk is Hitler. But if I did think Elon Musk was Hitler, I wouldn't be laughing all the time.
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't be fucking with Elon Musk because I'd be scared I'd be rounded up by the brown shirts and thrown into the fucking gulag somewhere. Like, I wouldn't be out on the street holding a fuck Elon sign up because I would be fearful that I'd be rounded up because you guys are saying they're rounding up people.
Yeah.
So I don't believe them, is what I'm saying.
Rounding up Venezuelan gang members right now.
Yes, that's right. I do. I do like, I heard somebody, I love when, I don't know why, I love when people exaggerate, you know. I heard someone going, he's rounding up everyone with tattoos. And I'm like, oh boy,
Shit,
that's going to be you're fucked. That's going to be a long day.
Going to Venezuela.
You're going to
or
round up
El Salvador.
every bitch I see in a mall now has a tattoo. All right, here's an interesting thought. I don't know. I was talking to Dr. Drew about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a concept. It's a heady concept, but you guys can all think about it a little. I realize people build sort of avatars of like sort of who they are versus who they actually are. Now, I think women do more of this than men, but men do it too.
Oh, yeah. Women, it's a full 3-ring circus. They're painting their face. They're doing all kinds of,
Yeah,
that's
but
like
there's
an
also
avatar.
a different person for them that exists outside of who they are, and it's sort of the one they present. Like if you ever you ever hear
their
women
Instagram avatar.
you hear women sit around and talk, they'll go like, "Oh man, being a mother, man, it's a full-time job. Get up, make breakfast, take everything," and it's like, you got a full-time nanny, bitch. And you've had a full-time nanny for 12 years. What do you mean? And you don't have a job. So who is this person? Who's this person that you're creating?
Oh, you have like a on-the-fly resume that you tell everybody, like, I do so much. I get it.
It's a thing where you kind of are building a separate person that you wish you were.
With men, it's like, if you're understated, then you come see me doing the hard work, then it's impressive. So I like to understate it. Women kind of overstate it. They want to paint the town. They want to let everyone know their value as a woman. I get it. It's a yin and yang.
Yeah, they do. I mean, men have a version. There's the version of. It's basically the version of you that thinks you're a really hard worker and you care too much. Like everybody thinks. Every person I talk to goes, my problem is I do too much for other people and then I get screwed over. It's like, well, that's not mathematically possible. There's no way all of us do too much for someone else. Who's doing the screwing over? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I know. There's an equation that goes into that, yeah.
Yes, I do too much and I get screwed over. Every woman I've ever met, that's what she thinks. But it's mathematically impossible that you try, because there's a group of you and your friends and you do too much for your friends. But remember, they do too much for you. Yeah. It's a math that'll never work out. Yeah. It's right up there with you are the coolest. It's wow wow wubsy telling you. Well, not everybody. Now this isn't going to work. Maybe if you're talking to LeBron James or the Ovechkin or something, or the Fonz. But I'm just saying this avatar about like when women sit around. I'll try to think of a guy version. They sit around and they'll talk to another woman about what they eat or their diet or whatever it is, and then you'll be looking at them going, "That's not you at all." You know what I mean? But they have their version.
Of course.
It's the version. I guess it's the version for women and men. It's basically you going, "Who do I want you to think I am, and who do I sort of think I am?" And it's like a lot of these things where we're going to stand up, we're going to talk about fighting back, we're going to talk about courage, we're going to talk about fear, we're going to talk about leading the way and get out of the way, and you know, but nothing really happens. It's just you've painted yourself as Joan of Arc, but you've never got on a horse or did any battle with anybody. You never did any of this stuff. Yeah. So what is that?
It's
and there's a male
pep rally.
There's a male version of it
the
as
woman
well.
version, that was like a Oprah get ready to rumble kind of rally. You know,
Oprah may be the leader of the avatar world in that she's constantly telling the women who they are and how they should feel. But meanwhile, she tapes her show at noon, and it's a Tuesday, and everyone's just sitting there in the bleachers. Like, why are they there?
Yeah.
Why don't they have a job? Why aren't they out doing any of the stuff they're talking about?
Well, I think that the idea of self-improvement and the idea of self-empowerment is super huge in that community, and everybody wants to feel like they're doing something to trend in the right direction, so they throw themselves a party on a Tuesday at 12, go have mimosas, and then tell each other they're awesome. I am woman, hear me roar.
All right. Well, I got, see, Joe Mantegna's here, so I got some news we want to get to, and then we'll bring in Joe. And first, we'll do the news right after this.
Adam Carolla's on the road. San Diego, April 11th and 12th at the American Comedy Club. Port Charlotte, Florida, May 2nd and 3rd at Vasani's Italian Steakhouse and Comedy Theater. And Melbourne, Florida on May 4th at the Melbourne Auditorium. Get tickets for these shows and a whole lot more at adamcarolla.com.
Chime. Well, small little steps can make a big change, especially in your financial future. So, when you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future. With no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit, making progress has never been easier. Yeah, it's there was a time before Chime when I was not as responsible with my finances as I could have been, but those are the old days. Get spotted on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. No monthly fees or maintenance fees. To date, Chime has spotted members over 30 billion with a B. Let's get the finances going. Let's get some Chime. Right, Dawson?
Turn your everyday purchases into steps toward your financial goals with Chime's secure credit card. Get started today at chime.com/Adam. That's chime.com/Adam. Chime feels like progress. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by the Bancorp Bank NA or Stride Bank NA. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Out-of-network ATM withdrawals and OTC advance fees may apply. Late payment may negatively affect your credit score. Results may vary. My pay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. Here's a memorable moment from the Adam Carolla Show's Ace Awards archives.
Even when I do Tony Soprano, you know, fuck that Uncle June think he's on the bush.
Right.
Friend of New Jersey. When Uncle June is not, I'm the king of the bush of New Jersey. All my guys know that pussy Shell Christopher. Even Uncle June and Johnny Shack. So, you know, with Tony, it's the shh, like Hesh. Talking about Hesh and Jadish.
Right.
So if you hit those notes, man, you're in pocket.
The 2025 Ace Awards, coming this December. Now back to the Adam Carolla Show.
All right, Mayhem, you got some news?
I do have some news. You'll be happy to know the UK Women's Pool Championship match features 2 biological males. Yeah.
It's funny. I was just saying the other day, why do we even have a male and a female billiard group? You don't really need much.
Yeah. Well, this article points it out that the champion, and I guess the champion who won up to the date right now it happened where the woman won who was a biological male, I may say, defeated another one.
Well, it's gonna be.
I feel like this is a non-issue, right? Is like, who cares? What I mean, shouldn't they have just gone in the men's bracket, women's bracket?
I mean, look,
everybody. I want to see a biological woman beat a man at it.
Okay, here's the thing. Men have advantages in sports over women. My God, when you watch the McDonald's All-Star High School game versus the listen to me. The McDonald's High School All-Star team, which is comprised of probably 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, maybe more 17-year-olds. I don't know when you graduated.
Yeah.
I turned 18 at the very end of high school, whatever. 17, 18-year-old males.
Yeah.
Would dismantle a WNBA All-Star team. Dismantle, because they play above the rim.
Yeah.
So they would destroy them. So that's that. So they have advantages. That's fine. And so we have categories for women because whether it's basketball or pole vaulting, men would dominate and then it wouldn't be fair to the women. So we created a women's sport. And now men have moved their way into the women's sport and they are winning, which seems wildly unfair to women. But if you bring that up, then they accuse you of being a misogynist, or I don't exactly know what their angle is.
What am I?
I would prefer biological women to not be beat by men in sports. That's what I would prefer. Now, I don't know if that makes me a misogynist, a heathen. I don't know what that makes. I don't know what that makes me, but that's really pretty much what it is.
The winner of this event won 1,800 pounds.
So and probably could squat 1,800 pounds as well. So it's two men posing as women who won the women's pool championship in the UK. All right, well, keep going, everybody. I guess this is progress. This is a good thing. And then there's two biological women who were beaten out at some point by these two dudes who grew their hair out. So that's how they won it. Okay. Then if the biological woman who got beat out by these two dudes says anything, then she's going to be attacked by groups who love women.
Then she can join the right-wing sphere, and there you go. She got a whole career.
Yeah, she'll be Riley Gaines. All right. Well, this is going to continue happening. By the way, whatever it is they say is not happening is always happening. We just have to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Remember, like Aurora, Colorado, like, oh, there's barely any Ragua gangbangers in this neighborhood. It's like they're all over the fucking place. The border's closed, essentially. No, it's not. No, whatever it is you said isn't happening is always happening. You just get the vaccine and then you'll be fine. It'll shut the thing down and you'll go on and be happy forever. Okay. Put the mask on, too. Yeah, it all works. We're always right.
Still, you mentioned Colorado there. The Democratic-controlled Colorado State House passed HB 25-1312, a.k.a. Legal Protections for Transgender Individuals, which makes misgendering all individuals, including children, a discriminatory action.
I love that they're listen.
There's a very woke kind of mentality.
By the way, you're
saying the wrong syllables.
If your dad, and then once you arrested, if the dad calls his son, who's been his son, who's his biological son, who got his brain scrambled by some freakazoid teacher in a public school and is now putting a dress on, and if he calls his son instead of his daughter, then he's going to get into trouble, which, by the way, does sound pretty Orwellian and a little scary to me.
Yeah.
And also, the misgendering part, I don't feel like it is that devastating to a person who's grown up in a certain body for many, many years before they get traded to another team.
Yeah.
You know, I've said it before, OJ finished his career as a San Francisco 49er. OJ was known and broke the rushing record and got 2,000 yards as a Buffalo Bill and was an all-star as a Buffalo Bill and it did all the commercials. And he was always a Buffalo Bill. And at the very end, when he was pretty much done, he ends up being a 49er. But I think if you called him a Buffalo Bill,
he'd be like, yeah.
In 1981, he wouldn't get all freaked out that you didn't acknowledge him as being a 49er.
He wouldn't stab you in the neck.
No, he wouldn't try to cut your head off or your friend who brought you your glasses back or something like that. So I'm just saying, if you're going to make this transition, be prepared.
Yeah.
For some of this.
I think, it needs to cool out. You know what I mean?
Can deal with it yourself. We don't need legislation for this.
They want the cops called. Get on the ground. Got him. He. No.
Misgendering.
I feel like, you have to have a little sense of humor about this, everybody.
Listen, you know what's weird? Colorado and Minnesota went nuts. And Colorado and Minnesota were just places that had snow and, Paul Bunyan and Rocky Mountains and Bud Grant, coach of the Vikings and stuff like John Elway.
Yeah, yeah.
The Colorado, the Orange Crush defense, Mile High, Bronco. Like Colorado was just Colorado. I don't know in Minnesota it was always just Minnesota. And then they went fucking nuts like in the last 8 years. And I don't know what's going on. But
Everybody moved from California to Colorado, pal.
that must be it. 'Cause they're going to ruin that state with their idiotic shit. All right.
All right. Hey, teens are delaying getting their driver's license, and parents want to know why.
Ugh.
Yeah.
They don't even want. They don't want to drive.
No, I know. Yeah, the big thing I got out of this study was that, they got the internet. They got it in their pocket. A lot of their communication is done via the internet, so there's no reason to leave that. I remember as soon as I got a bicycle, I was gone out the neighborhood.
Well, we wanted freedom.
Yeah.
They don't want freedom.
They want popularity.
Yeah, or whatever it is they want, it's not freedom. So for me, I was raised in a sweat box with a depressed fat mom, and I was like, I get out of here. Like there's no food.
I was in a danger zone where beer bottles come flying.
Yeah, you want to get out. My whole plan was get out.
Yeah.
And get out as early and often as fast as I could. And so they're living in a place full of air conditioning and hot pockets and big screen TVs, and they ain't going anywhere.
You had teens recently, like did they get their driving license immediately? Were they up out because I imagine, interconnected, you're all day long on Instagram. What's the point in leaving if you're talking to chicks all day?
They didn't care. My son has no car. I've asked him on more than one occasion, would you like to look into getting a car? He's like, I'm good. I don't know what 18-year-old male
Uber
says I'm good.
See, that's the other thing in the study was that Ubers were a big part of it. People just leave in rideshare.
He likes to walk everywhere. Once you get an electric bike, man, you get anywhere in a city faster than you can in a car. He's got an electric bike and does not care. And there's nothing in it for him. Like a car used to mean freedom, but it was also a thing. Like it was part of your personality. You'd get a car and you go, I'm going to get some rims for my car, and I'm going to get this catback low resistance exhaust, and it's going to make some noise, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I'm going to get a low flow, low restriction air filter and see if I can get another 5 horsepower. I mean, I used to sit around and just go, look, you get these camshafts, you get another 7% horsepower at 7,000 RPM, and you get this header system on there, you get this much, you get a turbo, you get that much. Like it was always.
Yeah. I tricked out the custom van, like made it like had a bed in the back, turned into a bed. I had a disco ball. I had the speakers just out there. It was like a disco.
Oh really?
Hell yeah, it was bumping. I was just parking outside the rave. Yeah.
Bring the ladies back?
Bring the ladies,
What year?
dot. It was like 99, 2000, baby. I was like, it was a good time. I'm telling you, Ace, you missed it.
Let me tell you what. Let me tell you the saddest tableau ever, which is when I used to clean carpets. One of the vans we had was a killer 70s custom van that had fallen on hard times and was now a carpet cleaning van. But it was still the same van, but it was a broken down.
Remember in
Boogie Nights?
Yeah.
He got the Corvette, like the red Corvette, and then later on, when they're all strung out on meth, you'd see the busted up Corvette driving along with all of them sitting in it to go rob the drug guy's house.
Yeah, I get it.
That's what it was like.
The dilapidated corpse.
Yeah, the thing said in airbrushed handwriting on the door, it said Radical Rich, because Rich got this van for his 16th birthday in 1975, and it was the coolest thing ever. It had the Krager rims on it. It had the captain seats that swiveled.
I had that. Yeah.
Wooden steering wheel, Blaupunk stereo. It was a killer midnight blue with light blue pinstriping, custom van for Radical Rich, but that was 10 years ago, and now it was a busted up carpet van.
Radical Rich is in rehab.
Yes. So, yeah, your car was like your personality. You knew everyone kind of put their own flavor on their own thing. Everyone kind of knew who everyone was by their car. You could hear them coming. There were guys who had people name their cars. I knew a guy named Jeff Katz had an oar mounted on top of his car, upright, a half a paddle. I don't know why, but that's what he had. And everyone had their own thing going on. Yeah. And now everyone's on a scooter with an Uber, and they got an electric bike, and everything. No one cares. There's no pop in the hood.
No.
What's under the hood? No one knows what's under the hood. There's no anything. What is going on?
The bygone era.
Yeah, so now I got an 8-year-old son. So it's like, I'm like, you want a car? I don't know. Why don't we get like an old Mustang and fix it up? Okay, good. I don't care. He doesn't care. Nobody cares.
It's strange, yeah.
Yeah, so we wanted to get our license to get out.
Yeah.
And I got my license as fast. I failed driver's ed. People know the story, but I failed driver's ed, and I wanted my license so bad. My driver's ed, I took the second semester in the 10th grade, so I would have turned 16 right before I graduated, and right before I graduated driver's ed. But Mr. Gregory saw fit to fail me from driver's ed, even though I attended every day. I was just a bad student. And so I failed, and now I was 16, and it was summer, and I had no driver's license and no school, and I'd failed driver's ed.
So you were just fucking off the test every day? Like you wouldn't even read the book? That's what you're saying, bad student? You're just like, because I figured driver's ed, do some driving, do some, you got to figure out.
Well, that's driver's training. This was ed. I sat in a classroom. Now, what I did is I relied heavily on the kindness of strangers. I've had this happen in life. I've been burned a few times where I'm like, oh, they'll take pity on me. They'll take pity on me. I thought there's sometimes I've been people take pity.
Take pity about what? That you can't figure out how far to stop before the crosswalk?
No. Mr. Gregory said, look, I showed up every day. I took all the quizzes and the tests.
You keep saying that you were did good, but you were there every day. That's your only qualification for being good at driver's ed. Was you showed up.
I had friends that just cut classes completely, but we ended up in the same place, which an F. And I would always be like, I got the same grade you got, but I showed up every day, and then you got the same grade I got, but you went to the fucking reservoir and had fun with your girlfriend? And we both got a fail. What am I doing?
I get it, yeah. Should at least get a participation.
Look, all you got to do is pass driver's ed. You don't need to get an A or B. You just pass. And then once you pass, you get a fucking certificate that says you passed driver's ed. And then you take that to the DMV and you can get a learner's permit or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'd already failed biology the semester before in Mr. Dilberti's class, and I knew my GPA. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't working on a GPA.
Yeah.
I had nothing to brag about, so I didn't mind a D. I needed to pass. I needed a completion slip. So I showed up every day, and then he said at the end, everybody, he goes, look, this isn't a requirement from the state or anything like that. And you wouldn't get it if you're in Mr. Smith's driver's ed class. By the way, Mr. Smith, who was the assistant football coach who fucking loved me and was a cool dude. Guy was like Mac Davis. And I ended up Mr. Gregory, the weird angry guy's class. And he's like, I need a 10-page full written report on passive restraints or airbags or crumple zones or fucking whatever. And I was like, 10-page type report. Like,
He just did that to failure.
he just did it to everyone.
Oh, everyone.
Everyone.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I can't.
Drone on for 10 pages?
I can't type 10. I'm not capable of writing 10 pages. I don't even. First off, I don't know anyone who has a typewriter. We don't own a typewriter. So how am I going to do this report? I don't have a book. I don't have a typewriter, and there's no one I know who owns a typewriter. Actually, my friend Zeb had a typewriter, actually. But he's not going to write 10 pages for me. So I was just like, I'm just not going to write the report. And then he'll look at me, and I'll go, you didn't turn the report in. And then I'll go, oh, fuck it. I'll give you a D-. Here's your, get out of here.
Yeah.
He failed me. He failed me.
Whoa.
Yeah.
He just wanted you to make an effort, Carolla.
So then I got out, and I realized I failed driver's ed right when I got out of the turn 16. So I just took my I would always take my birthday money, would be $20 from my dad, $20 from my mom, and then $10 from my stepdad. Why not? 10. And then I would get 10 from my grandparents usually, and I put it all together.
Yeah.
And so I had like $60 together, and I took the $60 and I gave it to like the Sears driving school or whatever it was. And magically you could take a full semester of driver's ed and mash it into 3 12-hour days. At a strip mall in Van Nuys.
Yeah.
And I just sat there with a bunch of fucking losers across the street from the
Getting your DMV,
the
GED.
DMV, and just sat there. Just, and by the way, I'd already went through all this shit in Mr. Gregory's class. Then I stamped that, got my learner's permit. Then went to driving school for, whatever the stupid, I don't know how it worked. And then I got my thing, and I got my license fast. I could get my possible license. My kids not interested.
At all.
My daughter a little bit. My son At some point, you get them interested in it because they're 17 and a half. They're like, could I get a ride over to? It's like, get your stupid license. You could drive yourself over to your friend's house. And then, yeah, I remember my nephew stayed with me once, and we were like, we were going over to Bill Simmons, the sports guy's house down in Malibu for like the 4th of July, and I was like, I kept saying to him, like, you want to drive, right? And he's like, yeah, I want to drive. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna get my party on at Bill's house for the 4th of July. But you're driving. You're the designated driver. You're driving home, right? And he's like, yeah, all right. And then we're leaving. He's like, I don't want to drive. I'm like, you got to drive. Now you got to drive. He's like, I don't know. I'm scared. It's dark. I'm like, hey, everything's an automatic. What is? By the way, we had to drive cars that had a stick shift and a clutch and were finicky.
And no window or muffler.
Yes. I don't know what's going on. They don't want their freedom. But it's our fault. So if I said to my kids, look, you guys are used to 7,300 square feet and air conditioning and a full-time nanny and a flat panel TV that's 75 inches. They go, and a phone. And I'd go, yeah. They'd be like, yeah. I go, all right. We're going to move into a shit box in the valley that's 900 square feet. There will be no air conditioning. Your TV's going to be 13-inch Zenith black and white. Give me your fucking phone. Nanny, you're fired. Well, then they'd want to get the fuck out of there.
You're right.
That's what happened. Everybody I knew was incentivized to move out as soon as they turned 18 because they were like getting into fist fights with their stepdad, or the house was a sweat box, or there was nothing to eat, or his dad got drunk and threw a beer bottle at me or whatever. And my stepmom got drunk and came on to me or whatever. And then she tried to put a cigarette out on me when I was naked and stuff. They're like, not luxury. If I had luxury and a Sub-Zero refrigerator, 48-incher filled with food, and an indentured servant who was cooking, then I'd still be at home too. But I had none of those, so I wanted to get out. So they don't want to get out. It's not about cars. It's not about a license. They're not incentivized to leave.
There's escapism too. Everyone's phone is connected right to their brain. They can just recede into that world instead.
Yes, they're living in some digital world somewhere, and we wanted to go to the beach. Man.
Go to the beach and park right on the beach.
Right on the pier, right there.
Well, you'll be happy to know that San Francisco is launching a new program backed by Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom that will issue speeding tickets based on income. Yeah, speed safety system pilot program was signed by Newsom in October 2023. It allows cities across California to use speeding cameras to find drivers. Those considered lower income are eligible for a steep discount if they receive a speeding ticket, and if you make a lot more, you get charged a lot more.
Well, maybe, but I'm not totally opposed to this.
I'm not opposed to this because back when I was rich Mayhem, I would get a ticket and throw it right out the window.
Yeah.
Like, haha.
When you were rich, man.
Yeah, just rich guy Mayhem was just ridiculous. Throwing them out the window. I got very humbled by life and realized that's not the way to go, bud.
Yeah, well, okay, so I would say this to Gavin Newsom. It disproportionately affects poor people, and that's something we've talked about for a long time, which is before I got into show business, it's a little hard to tell from my Social Security number because I worked under the table as a carpenter a lot of the time. Sometimes people just pay you cash.
That's the way, bud.
But I probably, I would say averaged from high school to show business. I probably averaged $11,000 a year or something, maybe $9,000.
Yeah.
I don't know, that was the average.
Living well under the poverty line.
The poverty line wasn't quite as high as it is now, but it was still down there.
Yeah.
And so a parking ticket was devastating.
Yeah, I know.
To me. And I'd got vehicles towed and I got motorcycles towed, and it was all devastating financially. And so I get it. I'm making, I'd be making $9 an hour. And then I'd get my motorcycle towed, and they'd want $75 to get out of the thing. I mean,
like half your savings right there.
A parking ticket would be a day's work for me. So it was brutal. But the other thing so I get it. And what Gavin Newsom should also be thinking about is gas being $5.50 a gallon kicks the shit out of poor people. It doesn't bother me because it's neither here nor there in my world. But if I was still driving a truck and making $20 an hour, then $5.50 a gallon gas makes a big difference. So that affects disproportionately the poor people. But also, in terms of the numbers, okay, here's what I would sign off on. A parking ticket can be, or a moving violation could be, for the sake of argument, 1% of your monthly income or some version of that. Whatever worked out. But I'll just say
1%? No, usually a speeding ticket is like $300, isn't it? $200.
Well, let's see. If you make $3,000, a month, let's just say for the sake of argument, then $300 would be 10%.
Yeah.
Right? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, 10% of what you make in a month would be a moving violation. But now, if you're a rich guy and you make $100,000 a month, then it's $10,000.
Chuck it out the window.
That you got to pay. You got to pay.
Oh, wow.
But I do, in general, look, if you would like to make things less burdensome for folks who get speeding tickets or parking tickets or whatever, I'm all for that. There's another thing you can do is stop gouging everyone for speeding tickets. That would help them as well. And then there's another part where I think San Francisco, maybe even Los Angeles, has a thing where they don't cite people of color for jaywalking.
What?
I would cite them more, but only at night because they cannot be seen.
Yeah.
They are ghosts at night. They go right. They're going to get hit. No, because a disproportionate number of black men jaywalk.
Yeah.
I would say my plan would be to get them to not jaywalk, not cite them. That's going to get more of them run over.
Yeah.
But I would also stop making this rule for rich people and this rule for poor people, and there's a mansion tax, but you only have to pay it if you own a house more than $5 million. Like, stop making this rule and that rule. Don't have different. If you're doing admittance at a college, don't have test scores for Asians that are different than blacks, that are different than Hispanics, that are different from men, that are different from women. Just have one thing.
Well, for this, I don't know. This seems like kind of a good idea because, like I said, while Mayhem was just throwing him out the window, didn't care, and kept speeding. You get it? I had that young guy mentality of, I'm just going to, whatever, to take it, who cares? So by upping the penalty, if you're making more money, it really encourages you to slow down, right?
I think about it. I probably did a lot more speeding when I was poor.
Yeah. And not me, man. I was like no license, no driving in the mirrors the whole time. Hands at 10 and 2, sitting straight upright. Yes, sir, no, sir.
When you're poor?
Hell yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't have car.
No insurance at all.
I didn't have car insurance for, I would say, let's see. If I started driving at 16 and I started making money in show business at like 31 and a half or something, then that gives me a 16-year window of driving. I'd say 16 years of driving in Los Angeles. I had auto insurance for 19 months.
Right.
Out of that 16-year period.
Yeah.
And that would just be comp and collision, like the bottom, the least amount possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I drove cautious. I never wanted to get into an accident, obviously. Like, I had to put my fuel cutoff switch and do all the shit because I didn't have insurance in my truck.
Yeah. I always drove like I had a body in the trunk.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
That's what we got to tell people. But they don't want to drive. It's the funniest. And I'm also going to tell my son, like, you don't know what jack-off young half-criminal dudes are, like what we grew up with, you know? I remember I lent my buddy, my buddy said, I need to borrow your truck to, like, pick up a pinball machine or move something. And I was like, okay, but listen, I used to give everyone speeches, you know? This truck is all I got. Now, it ain't insured, and I don't have anything. And if this truck busts down, I'm out of work because I need this truck because I'm a carpenter. So, yes, you can borrow my truck, but you need to be careful with it and take care of it. And the guy goes, yeah, no problem. And then I was like riding my motorcycle that same weekend. He was borrowing the truck. It's like riding my motorcycle back to my apartment, and it was raining outside, and I was driving by the Gelsons in Studio City, and it was like 12 at night or 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I looked at the sign. There's an empty Gelsons parking lot, but it's blacktop and it's wet.
Yeah.
And I noticed there's a guy doing donuts in a truck, full drift, sideways, just spinning out, just sliding, empty park, just doing donuts in an empty parking lot. And I'm like, is that my truck? That's my truck. Then I went and found the guy, and I was like, I gave you a whole speech about my truck. Yeah? And you're doing donuts in a wet parking lot in the middle of the night? And he's like, hey, man, started raining, was slick. There's nobody in the parking lot, so I went for it. I'm like, wow. Wow, did you not get any of you got none of my speech. You got zero retention of any of my responsibilities.
It might be a bad time. Maybe I should do it off the air. Can I borrow your truck?
No. Well, now you can. It's full insured. All right, Joe Mantegna is out there, the actor, been in every movie and now every TV show as well. We'll take a break. We'll go one-on-one with Joe right after this. Homes.com. Some might say Homes.com is the best home shopping site. It may be Homes.com's super comprehensive and transparent agency directory, or maybe it's that Homes.com is the only site that always directly connects you with the listing agent who knows the home best. Maybe it's all the above. Perhaps it's because Homes.com has the most in-depth neighborhood content of any home shopping site that's extensively researched to highlight the personality of each neighborhood. Homes.com goes above and beyond to bring home shoppers the in-depth info they need to find the right home. Homes.com. Simply Safe. Well, a lot of stuff people worry about when they're at home. Like, I don't know, pipes bursting. Or did you leave the garage door open again? Or the lights on? Or did you leave the oven on? Simply Safe helps you with peace of mind. And they've helped millions of Americans enjoy a greater security in their own home, and that comes along with peace of mind. Every time you arm your system when you're heading out in the morning or locking up at night, you get peace of mind. Traditional security systems only take action after someone has already broken in, and it's too late by then. Simply Safe's Active Guard outdoor protection can help prevent break-ins before they happen. AI-powered cameras backed by live professional monitoring agents monitor your property to detect any suspicious activity. Monitoring plans start at a very affordable $1 a day. Yeah, it's just about $1 a day to get Simply Safe and peace of mind. So let's get going. It's Simply Safe, right, Dawson?
You can get 50% off your new Simply Safe system with professional monitoring and your first month free at simplysafe.com/Adam. Just head to simplysafe.com/Adam to claim your discount and make sure your home is safe this year. Keep your home, your family, and your peace of mind protected with Simply Safe. There's no safe like Simply Safe. The Adam Carolla Show presents Joe Mantegna's birthday cocktail party for November 13th. Let's see who's invited. Here's the King of England, Edward III. Let's welcome the author of Treasure Island, Robert Louis Stevenson, American television writer and film director. Let's welcome the legendary Gary Marshall. Here's former U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland. Here's the namesake of the band Aldo Nova, and his stage name is Aldo Nova. Prepare for glory. Gerard Butler is here. Whoopi Goldberg is here. Actor Steve Zahn is here. And Adam's best friend, Jimmy Kimmel. Joe Mantegna is on the Adam Carolla Show.
Yeah. Jimmy. Good to see you, Joe.
Good to be seen, Adam. Thank you.
Joe's always up to something, working. I went and looked through your IMDb or Wikipedia or whatever it was. God, just nonstop work, entire career. Book and Tequila as well. The book, Long Branch, and that's available wherever you find finer books. And then Señor Rio is, and I ran into Joe at the Burbank Airport, and you were heading off to Arizona to do a convention, sort of alcohol and spirits.
Yeah, alcohol and spirits thing. I'm a part owner of this company. You know, you throw a rock in the air nowadays and it'll land on a celebrity who's involved with some booze somehow. But this is something I took to this. It was owned by this woman who had. It goes back 3 generations with her father. Then it turns out her and her husband took it over. Her husband passed away suddenly. She was running this company by herself. And she was giving back. That was part of it too. But besides the fact that it was a pure kind of a people who like tequila, it's the real deal because there's no additives, preservatives, that kind of a deal. But anyway, the whole story just won me over, and especially in the product itself. And I thought to myself, it's not my day job, but this seems like something I'd like to get involved with her. And so she's been terrific, and so I'm out there peddling Señor Rio, around the country, and we'll see what happens.
Where does one find it if one wants to get some?
Well, right now it's exclusively at all the Total Wine stores throughout the country. There's there's a couple hundred of those. But now we're working on larger distribution beyond that. But what's great about it is when we do these tastings, like and in Arizona, it's different. California, California don't let you hard liquor. You can't go in and
rules. California,
yeah, exactly.
huh?
Yeah, but in Arizona, it's like, oh yeah, here, it's almost like they hand you the bottle. Here, take a slug out of it and see if you like it. But no, they can give you little sips and cup, and people would go, oh man, especially the tequila drinkers. This is the real deal. This doesn't have the sugars and the things and yeah, I know. It's it's a nice.
Tequila, they've smoothed tequila out quite a bit over the last several years because it was tough back in the day. And that's why you did a shot of it.
Mexican rot gut,
right.
Exactly. But no, it's now you can, if you like a fine, a bourbon or something like that, it's right in that same kind of ballpark. But anyway.
So for you start acting at what age?
Well, as an amateur, I started in high school because I tried out for this play West Side Story only because I loved the movie so much. And I didn't know acting from the Hole in the Ground. But when I realized, you mean it's a play too? They were having auditions at my high school. I said, oh my God, I've seen the movie like 5 times. I mean, I grew up in a very urban Chicago inner city environment. So the movie of people dancing in the streets, gangs, seemed attractive to me. So I said, well, I got to try out for this play. Well, I did. I tried out for it. I didn't get cast, but I was so taken by the awe of showing up at the school at night and saw kids running around in black leotards who were the theater department and was like, what is this world? Who are these people? And I got up and I sang the song and it was like, I got a little applause and I was like, oh my God, I got to try, and I didn't get cast. That's a whole other story. It's because my parents changed my birth certificate so my mother could go back to work. So I was in a year of school further than I should have been. In other words, I was like 12 years old when I was in 8th grade type of thing.
Wait, so your mother changed your birth certificate so she could go back to work?
Yeah, because in other words, so they can put me in school at a younger age. So they changed. They actually had my brother's 8 years older than me. I found out later they had him do it because they were so they're like Italians, somewhat immigrant types. They're afraid that, of course, the police are going to show up even 30 years later and arrest everybody because they changed my birth certificate. So they had my brother, who was 8 years old, scratch out the date and change it so they can put me in school earlier so I didn't have to wait a whole year for me to go to kindergarten.
So this is the opposite of what people are doing now with sports, which is they're holding their kid back.
Exactly.
So they can
excel.
Be stronger and
no,
bigger.
I was always the littlest guy. I was always the youngest guy. Everybody was 13. I was 12.
Why'd they have your brother do it?
Because if the police showed up 30 years later, they could say, well, he did it as a child. We didn't know he did. No, but the scariest part of it, Adam, is I didn't know my birthday was changed until I was 16. When I needed my birth certificate to get going back, I heard your story about the driver's license. It made me think. When I went, I said to my parents, I said, I need my driver's license. I need my birth certificate to get a driver's license. And my mother was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you need your birth certificate? I said, I need it. Well, why? Now I'm thinking, oh, they bought me. Now the jig is up. I mean, And I said, is there a problem? Because you tell me now. And they said, well, your birth certificate's wrong. What do you mean it's wrong? Well, and then they tell me the story. And so I said, well, why didn't you tell me? I've been celebrating my birthday on the wrong day, everything, for 16 years. They said, well, we were afraid. Afraid of what? They were going to take me out of high school and arrest me? And
did they screw with the year and the day?
No, they screwed with just
the year.
They screwed with the date because the date was if you were past a certain date, you got to wait a year. So they just said, well, it's easy enough to change these numbers. We'll change the numbers. And so I should have been the oldest kid in my class, not the youngest kid. That kind of deal.
It makes a big difference when you're younger.
Yeah.
Now you want to be the youngest kid in your class,
yeah,
but when you get older. But yeah, I was saying this the other day in my show. I said, my dad was a Carolla and his brother Ralph was a Carollo. And I said, why? Why did he go by Carolla? And my dad's like, I don't know.
Like same thing in my family. There's one side of my family, it's Mantegna. They spell it M-O-N. and I spell it M-A-N. And I had to go to my grandfather's gravestone in Oklahoma to find that the correct one is M-A, the way we spell it. Then I find out, and then I ask around, why did the other side of the family spell it M-O? And I go, they don't want to talk about it. And I really think it's one of those things that somewhere along the line they figure it's better change the name a little bit so then that way, it's harder to trace or something.
So you got that weird Italian last name, different spelling with different family members as well.
Absolutely.
What was your grandfather doing in Oklahoma?
Back at the turn of the century, because my brother's into the genealogy, and so we know all of these facts and we have all the information. In Sicily, where my grandparents on my father's side were from, they found out that they were in this little town called Krebs, Oklahoma. It wasn't a state yet, but the Native Americans were offering to sell land to people who would come there. And for $500, you can get 50 acres. And you can get the $500 because there's these coal mines outside Krebs, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And that was typical at the time because the same thing, the writer John Fonte was from Colorado, the same thing, that Rockland, Colorado had these coal mines and many Italian immigrants worked there. So my grandfather and his best friend named Randazzo, they come to America. They go to this little town called Krebs.
What year is this?
This is like probably 1909, 1908,
and they get
state.
the Native Americans are on a reservation in Oklahoma.
I don't. Well, it wasn't a state yet, so they own a lot of
right, and they get the word out all the way to Italy.
All the way. Somehow it gets not just to Italy, but especially to this town called Calasciabetta, which is at the center of Sicily, at the top of a mountain. Because I've been there, and the only thing you can grow there is old. Because it's all rock,
right?
So the idea of going to this new country with land and green and we can farm it, I'm in. Mm-hmm. So my grandfather and his buddy, they get to Krebs, they work in the coal mines for 5 years, saving $100 a year because we have the bill of sale, we got all the stuff.
Oh, it's crazy.
And they buy the farm, and you go there today. And I've been there because we did, I do this other show on the Outdoor Channel called Gun Stories, where we trace historical firearms. We did an episode called Guns of the Immigrants, and we shot it on the farm. And you go to Krebs today, and you drive into this little town, and this town says Krebs, Oklahoma's Little Italy.
Wow!
Because of the generations that have been there, and the Randazzo family still lives in the farm next door. Now our farm, it just kind of laid there for like 60, 70 years because my grandfather died on the farm before I was ever born. My dad was still a kid. So my grandmother couldn't handle the farm alone, packed up all the kids, went to Chicago where she had family. Mm-hmm. So all of my memories are from being, Italian families in Chicago, not Oklahoma.
Right.
But then, of course, later on, my dad always talked about it. He was basically still, in his heart, he was a farm boy,
Wow.
From Oklahoma. And you go there today, like I said, there's all these still Italian stores there. Except everybody talks like this now. Hi, my name is Enrico Grandazzo, and it's like, which is kind of weird when you grew up in Chicago and your reference point of Italian Americans is different.
Yeah, my family, they were South Philly family, but it was same kind of Italian vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
But see, I didn't get a good name like Joe. I got the confusing Adam. So people are always like, what kind of name?
Well, my brother, but they named him Ron because he was the firstborn within all the family. But the problem was my mother's father's name was Joe, and my dad's name was Joe. Mm. So then when the firstborn came, my mother and dad wanted to name the firstborn Joe, but of course my dad's side of the family, the Sicilian side, was saying, "Oh no, you're naming after the mother's father, Joe, and he should be named Salvatore," which was the Sicilian grandfather's name. My mother didn't like the name Salvatore, but she knew she couldn't name my brother Joe because it was cause all his problems. So they settled on Ron, figuring there's no Italian in the world named Ron. It won't cause any problems.
Yeah. There's no Adams either.
Yeah, so they slipped me in later as Joe because it was okay. There was enough kids that were born by then.
So Joe works kind of in front of any last name, meaning you would just go off of the last name. It's not going to throw off the last name. Adam throws off the Italian part of the last name. That's the problem. with Adam. If I was Joe Carolla, people know I was Italian. But
yeah.
you go Adam Carolla, and they go, "What are you, a Jew or something?" I go, "No, I'm not. I'm Italian."
I'm an Italian wasp. Something's Adam.
I'll tell you the funniest thing about it. It's how people profile. The entire time I worked as a carpenter for over a decade, nobody mistook me for a Jew. No one ever thought. There were no Jews in Los Angeles working on a construction site. No Jews. As soon as I got into show business and comedy, it's like, "You're a Jew, right?" I go, "Nope." But then I was exclusively a Jew once I got into a writer's room in Hollywood. And I didn't change anything about myself. It's just one has this profession and the other profession attracts that group.
There you go. It's perception.
So do your parents object to you going into the arts? Or when I talk to people all the time, comedians and actors and stuff like that, some parents encourage, some parents try to dissuade their kids from going to the arts. Some are somewhere in between. What was and usually if you're older, school and a little more traditional, then the arts don't really seem like a job, especially the guys who worked in a coal mine for 5 years to buy a plot of land.
Right. No, they didn't have a clue. They had really no clue and never really said much of anything about it. To the point where I finally asked my brother, because my dad died when I just started professionally. I had done my first job professionally to play Hair in 1969.
Oh man!
And so my dad passed away right during that period. And he had been sick all his life, so it was lucky he even lived that long. But I asked my brother, then I said, I got to ask you, they never said anything to me about being an actor? Did they ever talk to you about it? Did it ever come up? And he said, well, yeah, it kind of did. When you first kind of were getting into it, they kind of said to him, said, Ronnie, what do you think? He wants to be an actor. Should we stop him, or something, whatever? My brother in his wisdom said, no, look, he's a smart kid. He says, let him do what he wants to do, and if doesn't work out, he'll move on to something else. And that's all they wanted to hear. They wanted to be able to say, oh, great, we don't have to get involved. We don't have to say nothing. And to the point where, and at the end of that loop is my mother lived to be 101 and died about 4 or 5 years ago. At her funeral, we're at her funeral, and my brother got up to speak, of course, first, being the eldest, and he says, my brother Joey doesn't even know this, but our mother called him up when I had gotten the show Criminal Minds, which was now 17 years ago. And she says to my brother, Ronnie, I'm worried about Joey. And my brother goes, why? She goes, he's only working an hour a week. Because her friends would call her and say, you want to see Joey? On Wednesday nights, turn on channel CBS at 9 o'clock in Chicago. And now she knew I was an actor because I would bring her to, she'd come see the play and I'd bring her, or I'd say, watch this. But she always figured, well, I must be doing something constantly, otherwise making a buck or something. And these movies appear and things appear, the plays appear. But now to be a regular every Wednesday at 9 o'clock from 9 to 10, how much could I be making in an hour a week? So she's thinking maybe I should send him $20, that kind of thing. My brother said, no, Joe, Joey's all right. Don't worry about that. So, I mean, that answers your question, hopefully, that they didn't, it was like, no, they didn't. It was like everything seemed fine. Nobody was, don't ask, don't tell, and it was great.
Hair in 69. So you audition for West Side Story. You ironically never do Oklahoma, even though
never did.
It seems like you should have tried Oklahoma.
Yeah, well,
now you go to Hair.
Right.
69, Hair. Everyone's naked on stage?
For momentarily, yeah. At the end of the first act, that's how the first act ends.
And Hair is like probably, if somebody said, what was 19, if an alien came from another galaxy and they said, explain the late 60s or what 1969 was or the Summer of Love, I just go watch Hair.
Right.
Or just listen to it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the zeitgeist was when it was, right?
And ironically, my wife was in that same production. And we've been to, in fact, we got married, of course, this was the 60s, so we lived together for a while. Then we got married in 75, so this, in October, will be our 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
So we've been together since then. But we were just talking about that. Somehow we came up in conversation. She said something was happening on TV and it was showing how people dress, some of the retro kind of, almost a hippie kind of a thing in some ways is coming back in some ways. And she was saying, oh man, it's like us talking about supposedly what the Roaring '20s were like, how it changed everything, and it was all this kind of thing with and that the '60s it changed so many things with the politically what was going on, like peace, love, rock and roll, drugs, all of that seemed to all happen in that time, and we were all at that age to kind of like take it all in, and the music. I mean, the Beatles, the thing. It just seemed the '60s just seemed so full of all kinds of things that are still, in many ways, relevant today. Are still we're kind of keep coming back and keep coming around the bend. And I don't know.
60s,
Glad I was part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of full of hope. I guess they figured we'd change things a lot. We haven't.
Yeah, but yet it was like the dichotomy, because then you'd have like we had the Chicago 7, we had Eldridge Cleaver's, Soul on Ice, we had all this stuff. Then later on, you'd find out then Jerry Rubin became a stockbroker, and Eldridge Cleaver opened a men's shop on Santa Monica Boulevard. So it was like, what was?
Well, look at
it was all over the place. It was like,
if you
whoa.
see pictures of Sonny Bono from the '60s going full beatnik. Full beatnik with a page boy haircut, wearing a leather vest and stuff, and then you see pictures of him as the senator or something, or
Mayor of Palm Springs.
Mayor of Palm Springs,
Right.
with his 3-piece suit and his tie and his lapel flag on it and stuff. And they go, that guy's that guy.
Yeah.
And then you but then you have to kind of realize, and I'll ask you, there are the people that are just going along for whatever direction the wind is blowing from a societal standpoint. Here we are. There's guys that are fully sleeved up with tattoos now, and they didn't even think about a tattoo until they were 40 and they got 0 tattoos. They were in the Navy and they didn't get a tattoo.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they're covered with tattoos. What is it? It's like, well, tattoos got popular.
Yeah.
Right. And that hairdo got popular.
Right.
And this phrase got popular. Right. And this tequila had a resurgence. I was saying this the other day. When I was drinking in my younger days and stuff, no one even brought up gin. No one thought about gin. Gin wasn't something we drank.
It was a British thing.
Yeah, it was weird. And it smelled weird, and no one would do it. And now gin's around, and no one knew what rye was, and now rye's here, And tequila was what you held your nose, and you did a shot so you could catch a quick buzz.
Or margaritas. You went to the Mexican restaurant, they put the salt on the rim, and you do a margarita.
Right. They would do everything but put bacon in a margarita to try to kill the tequila flavor. But you wouldn't pour a glass over the rocks and savor it like you do now with a fine scotch. Right. So things have this weird cyclical way. Fashion is this way, architecture's that way. Right. And the environmental stuff is that way. It was called ecology, and everyone was really in the 60s, early 70s, like really into the environment, but they were in a kind of, there's also, I don't know if you remember this, but there was like a lot of hobby stuff, like people taking 7-Up bottles and stretching out the neck of it, or making this out of that, or making a God's eye out of yarn, guys would make whole cowboy hats out of beer cans, and people take beer can tabs and weave belts.
They're making houses out of beer cans.
They're making houses. Like, it was this weird, nobody would go buy a camper shell for their truck. They'd make one out of teak, put a porthole in the side of it. It was like real weird, sort of crafty, hands-on. Not. That's all gone now.
I don't know where and I don't know where it's going next. And at this point in my life, I don't care. I'm just here for the ride, and hopefully, I'll be able to witness it, if not participate in it.
Yeah, but now, were you bitten by the &60s bug? Like, was your hair down to your waist?
It was down to my waist because it had to be. I was a professional hippie. I mean, I was in hair. So of course, and I was in a band. I was in a band in the 60s for about 5 years. And that's what, to this day, I'm very close to the band Chicago, because we used to travel a lot with them. They were called the Missing Links when we worked with them. and we stayed very close. In fact, I narrated their there's a thing called The Last Band on Stage. I narrate that, and I presented them with their Lifetime Grammy Award, in fact.
Chicago, great band, and I worry about saying underrated because they sold tons of records and made lots of great music. Underappreciated in some way, shape, or form. There's certain bands like the Hollies who have tons of great music, but people don't really know that band did that song and that song and that song. You know, there's a handful of bands out there that created so much, and it was diverse. So you didn't know that's the same band doing those same
Chicago
songs.
was such a big sound. I mean, you had the brass, you had this, that, and the tons of, and it took them forever to. It was weird. It took them forever to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I think it was
That's insane.
Which was like, you know, and then they finally made it. It was like, where have they been? They sold many millions of more records than many of the people that preceded them.
Well, I think it was a Peter Cetera sort of soft 80s thing that people then held against them.
Yeah, I mean, he left the band, and that there was a little bit of a rift there and whatever. But whatever. At the end of the day, I mean, the truth wins out, and talent wins out, and just the facts win out. I mean,
so your band played what kind of music?
Whatever the people wanted. That's why we never ultimately became Chicago, because we were a great cover band. We worked a lot. In fact, there were literally nights when we'd get calls saying, that band, Chicago Transit Authority, they're here. They refuse to play the top 40. They only want to play their stuff. Of course, and their stuff wasn't really out there yet.
Right.
So they said, can you guys come in and finish the night? And we'd literally, if we weren't working at night, we'd pack up our stuff and show up because we were like horse. We would, like, if it was a rhythm and blues kind of club, we'd wear the white Temptation suits and do all that kind of stuff. And if it was a hippie crowd, we'd put the paisley shirts on and do that kind of music. So we were a good cover band, really good cover band, but we just couldn't.
Are we looking
there we
at
are.
it?
That's the Apocryphals. That's the band. That's me on the left.
Is that everyone with the Page Boy, or at least two? It got very Beatles-esque.
Yes.
Would you guys? What were some of your big covers? Like what are the memorable?
Well, we
covers?
made a couple records that we covered. Knock on Wood by Sam and Dave. We covered Mickey's Monkey.
That's a crazy Smokey Robinson song.
And then we did Gloomy Sunday by Billie Holiday, which was kind of ahead of its time, because when that came out, it was like, Billie Holiday, what the hell? Why would you do that?
Why don't you do Tears of a Clown as long as you're doing Smokey Robinson?
Yeah, we preceded that one, I think, and in terms of that, but it was great. I mean, we did well. In fact, I made a lot more money as a musician than an actor. Once when I did hair, I had to realize I had to quit the band, because now I was doing 8 shows a week.
Was that on Broadway?
No, it was the Chicago. They did a Chicago company, but it ran for like a year and a half in Chicago.
Were you sung and played as well?
In the band?
In the band.
Yeah, I was the lead singer. I was a bass player and the lead singer.
Wow.
So, and in fact, I did the musical. I did one musical on Broadway. I mean, literally on Broadway, and it was Studs Terkel's musical Working, based on his book. And I do the solo song I do on it is the Brother Trucker song written by James Taylor. And then I do a duet with another actor, Matt Landers. We do the Migrant Worker song. But James Taylor taught me that song. I remember being in New York, going to the recording studio and sitting down with him, and him with the guitar saying, "All right, Joe, I'll sing it once, and then you could try it." And of course, no, he sings the song, and I'm thinking, "Oh shit, I gotta sing the song to James Taylor, his song." Of course, I do it, and then we did the show. The show was not successful; it only ran about a month, but at least it was nice to have a.
But you had to quit the band.
I had to quit the band once I got cast in hair. It was because I knew I loved the band and we enjoyed playing together. But I really knew Chicago had just come out with their first album. I saw we were never going to be them.
Are we looking at you?
That's my wife and I in hair.
In hair
during the time I was doing the play hair. Yeah,
wow, with the hair down to the
because you're
shoulders.
talking about the hair, and then when hair closed, up less than a year later, I got cast in Godspell and played Judas. So I grew the hair about 3 or 4 inches longer than that. So yeah, I was a professional kind of.
Godspell was maybe even more 60ers than hair was. I mean, there were both quintessential.
There was a lot of similarities in terms of the concept of it, of free, kind of no sets, and just kind of do it, and relate to the audience and that kind of stuff.
Wow, so you must have really had some singing chops.
I really kind of thought, because I had done Hair and then Godspell and played lead roles in both, and I had then did Working, got a couple songs on the album. I thought, oh, maybe I'll be Jim Dale. Hopefully I'll have a career where I'll do musicals. Like, that'll be my thing, which would have been fine. But David Mamet, who was a writer at the time in Chicago, and he and I somehow hooked up. He saw me do a play there and said, hey, maybe I'd like to send you a script and we'll do something together. Well, that turned into a whole other thing and put me on a whole other path that ultimately I did. Of course, the fourth revival of it just opened now of Glengarry Glen Ross, but I did the original one on Broadway in 1984. The show wins the Pulitzer Prize. I win the Tony Award. That, of course, changed the whole direction of my career and my life, which is fine because, you play the cards you're dealt. So the whole idea of being a musical comedy guy kind of went to the wayside, which is fine, But that's that.
Mamet's such an interesting case study. I like that guy, but he's a very interesting guy. And
he is that.
I think his politics maybe got him shoved out of Hollywood a little bit. I don't know the full story.
It could be. And what's funny is I've known him for, 50 years. We never talk about anything but just like not show business, not directing, not acting, not politics, not nothing. We talk about firearms because we both have an interest in that, and it's not as crazy as it sounds. It's not like we're out there, oh yeah, man, let's go shoot guns and stuff. It's just us, we just had a passion for. And we're talking about sometimes old stuff, antique stuff. That's why I do this show called Gun Stories on the Outdoor Channel. But we talk about nothing but just stuff that two guys from Chicago who grew up together, who were 18 days apart in age, but grew up in total different. He grew up on the South Side. I grew up on the West Side. I grew up in I grew up with the kind of guys that he writes about, and I think maybe that's what kind of, in a way, caused us to kind of hook up. He was fascinated by those kinds of these, thems, and those guys that I kind of grew up with.
What's the difference when you were growing up between the South Side and the West Side?
Well, the West Side was a mishmash of like everything. I mean, and Chicago area was specific with neighborhoods back then. I mean, the parts of the South Side was absolutely the kind of the Harlem of Chicago. There's a traditional black area from way early on. Then there was also a Jewish section. There was, and I think Dave was part more of that. And then if you were on the North Side, North Side were they're Cub fans. If you're north of the Loop, you're a Cub fan, and if you're south of the Loop, you're a White Sox fan. And there's a difference there. There's the blue collar thing of being the White Sox and that kind of a thing, and the North Side was a little more, kind of got to be the hip area and this, that, and the other. And the West Side, we were jump ball. We could have gone either way.
How did the Firearms thing come in with you?
It kind of came in when I was doing a play with the Organic Theater out of Chicago, and it was a play called Cops. It was a play actually that David Mamet at the time co-wrote with a guy named Terry Curtis Fox. And in the play, there was gunplay had to happen, and I hadn't fired a gun in my life, a handgun, pistol, rifle, nothing. I just hadn't, because I didn't grow up on a farm like my dad. So we had to go take instructions for this because there was going to be this gunplay, and I kind of had to know what I was doing. So by doing it and being taught by the people who really knew what they were doing and doing it correctly, I kind of got interested in it. Like, wow! And then I found out that there were competitions that you could do, and then I got introduced to shotgun shooting, skeet shooting, and sporting clay, and trap. And I enjoyed that. And it made me realize some of the stuff you hear about, like, guns, this is terrible. There shouldn't even be firearms. And then you start to realize, well, the firearms have been around since, the Chinese were putting gunpowder in bamboo and shooting it. And that there's history behind it, and every country in the world has some sort of history that's part of their history. So I kind of got into it on that level. Somewhat fascinated by it, and enjoyed the people too, the camaraderie. Because I'm talking about people, and like there's a whole bunch of people who say, hey, guns. They equate that with, first of all, people shooting each other on the streets, or with hunting, which is supposedly the worst thing you could do. But yet, on the other hand, you find out, no, actually, people who seriously were into hunting and all that. Some of them are the greatest proponents of animal husbandry. Then you know what I mean. They're gonna they want animals to live so they can hunt them.
Yeah, the people are obviously they're wearing leather shoes and lecturing you about eating steak. But I grew up with the anti-gun crowd in Los Angeles, my family, and a gun was like a representation of hostile American male sort of. It meant something. It was like symbolic. Like if you see someone now driving a car alone with a mask on, you know how they vote. You know, and if you see a guy, I always say wearing the trucker's hat with the sunglasses on top of the bill, you know that guy votes differently than that guy. And so gun really meant that you were that kind of person, and that's how they did it.
And I hate that because that to me is the exact, in many ways, the opposite of what I am, in the sense of that don't assume that my belief in the Second Amendment has anything to do with any politics I may have.
Right.
Because one does not equate with the other. Because first of all, the Second Amendment, I do believe in it strongly because and there's a reason it's the Second Amendment. The first one is the freedom of speech. The second one is the thing that allows every individual in this country to be able to ensure we can keep that freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's all that is. But if you start putting labels on it and saying, well, if you like this, then you must like that, then it's been a little
Well,
silly.
they were smart. They put the word nut behind gun.
Yeah.
So that guy's a gun nut.
Yeah.
It's like he owns a gun.
I'd like to think I'm myself more of a gun enthusiast than the gun nut. But
my mom would have labeled you a gun nut.
Yeah, that's all right.
But yeah, it's interesting. I love the mechanics of a gun because I love mechanical things.
Yeah.
And a gun is really kind of mechanics at its best and at its sort of most visceral sort of base.
Right.
Like when you hold a gun in your hand and you pull back the thing in the chamber and you look and they're all different. Well, the other thing that's interesting about guns is like if you go around and look at, you go to Jay Leno's garage and you walk around and you look at the car, he'll go, this one was an air-cooled front engine thing because that company made airplane engines.
Right.
So they had an air-cooled whatever.
Right.
And then this one is a V8 and that one's a flat 6 and this one's a V12 and this one's an inline. Right. And I'm like, all these different machinations and thoughts, you know, like which one's going to be the best.
Right.
Yet they all work, but some work better than others. But there are all ways to deliver power to the rear end. And so when you look at guns, when you look at weapons, and you think about, especially in war, you go, "This is how they thought would be the best way."
Well, I've been doing this show, Gun Source, for 15 years, and we do like 10 episodes about a year. So I shoot all these guns in these episodes, and some of them go back like guns that are like hundreds and hundreds of years old, blunderbusses, things like that, to up to like 50 cal that they put on tanks, and everything in between from every country on the planet. So I've shot probably more firearms than any other human alive in terms of different things. And yeah, some of them are like, they're like unbelievable. Certain countries will have made something back in the early 1900s that they thought was a good idea, and then we tell the story about it, and then you find out, well, it wasn't that good an idea because of things that kind of like would blow up or didn't work right. But then other things were brilliant. John Browning, who invented a gun, so many years ago, and to this day, it's still as good as it gets of a certain design.
And I got to look this one up, but I think, I'm not sure if a Messerschmitt airplane, I was doing a show the other weekend at an old warplanes museum, and you look at the planes, and some of them got the guns on the wings.
Right.
These are tail-dragging warbirds, like from World War II.
Right.
But I was like, one of these things had a cannon in the nose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was right at the nose cone.
The propeller. You're worried about the propeller.
I'm
Yeah.
like, what? How does one put a cannon in the front of the propeller?
Yeah, they do it.
Messerschmitt had a cannon in the front of the thing, and how they work this out, and the technology is insane. And from a purely mechanical standpoint, it is nuts.
Yeah.
To me. And I also feel, I don't know, the Messerschmitt 109 had a cannon in the front.
Well, maybe that's why we won.
In what country? I figure U.S., I figure Germany, I figure Italy. Jamaica probably wasn't famous for their guns, but who am I missing? Is there a group or a place somewhere that is
Germans
really into it?
Germans did some great stuff, and they still do. You know what I mean? But the Japanese, created, Czechoslovakia currently, even today. It's every country in the world, though. If you go, you find out France, Belgium. Belgium was one that's fairly famous. All over the planet, you can pick the country, and they all have some sort of a firearm or something that is significant to their history, whether from the past, present, or even stuff that they're thinking about for the future.
Yeah, it's a dream job. I mean, in terms of acting jobs, used to just be jobs where you went, all right, you take that job as an actor. Right. But there wasn't I love this sport, and now I'm going to turn following that into a job.
I've been doing that 15 years. I've been doing Criminal Minds now. I'm starting my 17th year on that show. That's been on 19 years, and I've been playing Fat Tony on The Simpsons for 34 years.
Wow!
So between those three jobs, I feel very blessed. Like, okay, at least I got a little longevity of nothing else.
I mean, 17-year run in network TV is. It's just unheard of.
Yeah, it's a rarity, that's for sure. But like you go into it, and you don't know. Like when I got the job, I thought, well, okay, this looks interesting. Good, I like the cast. I kind of like what this is about. Let's see how it goes. Maybe do this for a year or two. And that's back when my hair was black and I was a bit younger.
What I'm trying to think of, I know there's daytime TV. There's soap operas that go on for 50 years, and there's game shows that go on for 30 years. But drama, primetime, network, it's got to be creeping up on some record, right?
Well, we're up there. I mean, there's other shows that probably been on longer. I think Grey's Anatomy's been on longer. There's Law and Order, one of those kind of shows might be longer. Like I say, how do you predict that? You do it. What's helped us is that it has such popularity worldwide. I mean, we have at one time, just a year or so ago, it came out that it was one of the top 5 streaming shows on the planet Earth.
Really?
In terms of, and there's something like so many billion minutes of watching have been watched of this show over the.
Is there a region it's bigger that would be?
I get letters from everywhere. I get it from China, it's big in China, Russia, Germany, you name the country, South America, it doesn't matter. No, I don't know. What's interesting is I've been to a lot of different countries and I'll flip on the TV and there'll be an episode of the show on and I'll say, oh, wow, I speak fluent German. Or, I speak Italian better than I thought I did. Oh, and Spanish. Oh, and French. So I don't know if there's one in particular that's stronger, but I'm just very happy that it's as popular as it is.
I ask because bands will tell you that there's some place where they're super popular for no good reason.
Yeah.
And it always happens with bands and music, and I don't know what to attribute that to.
I don't know. Why do some shows that maybe are huge here don't necessarily translate over the rest of the world? And then vice versa, shows that are like, okay here are like monstrous other places. I don't know.
So I feel like you've able to take show business and really, or acting at least, and really turn it into a job, like a guy that just had a long time job working with one field
that's
or
all
another.
I know. I mean, you talk about how I know you've done construction and stuff like that, and I'll turn it toward this book here, Long Branch. This book is written by my assistant Dan Ramm, who he's been with me for about 25 years now as my assistant. Mm-hmm. I hired him because he was a roofer. He put the roof on a couple of my houses that I have got a couple of real estate things, investments I'd made over the years because my family was in construction. All my uncles were bricklayers. Mm. So Dan was this roofer. I could tell he was a sharp guy. Wanted to get into some other kind of stuff. He worked his way up from being a chimney sweep to being a roof guy, put in roofs, to owning the company. Mm-hmm. I want to get into something. So he started writing scripts. He wrote some stuff for Criminal Minds. He writes all the gun story episodes. He wrote this book called Long Branch, which we're hopefully going to turn into a series. So I did the audio version of it, and it's all about. It's great. It's all about a guy, a TV actor, who would at the end of his career kind of segues. He's kind of broke, looking to get into something else, and it turns into this whole. It's a novel, and it's just. I read the book and I just really taken with it. And I'm just so proud of him because he's a guy that is really, off tarring a roof to kind of writing what I just think is just like, and people I've given the book to in the industry have responded the same way. Like, this is really terrific. And I think this is at this point in my life and my career, this is what I enjoy, to be able to have passion around things that I've seen ferment itself from the ground up. To like, oh, you know what? Let's see what we can do with something like this. And that's been great.
Yeah, no, I think maybe you're this way. Kimmel's this way a lot. He likes putting people together and going, you'd like this guy and you'd like to work with that guy and this guy's got a good idea.
Maybe it's a November 13th thing, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a birthday thing because his whole thing is connecting this guy with that guy.
Yeah.
And then if you do enough of that, you'll end up okay yourself. But the motive needs to be pure.
Yeah, no, exactly. It makes the world go round. I mean, you know what I mean? You just, that's all I know. I mean, look, you grow up in a neighborhood, you have friends, you grow up, you try to keep your nose clean and try to just, make a buck and get ahead and live a happy life. Beyond that, the older I get, the more I realize it's like, it's funny, you probably know it. There's that dry cleaners in Burbank called Milton Edie's.
They always have their inspirational signs.
Yeah, they're inspirational signs.
Yeah.
And the one they got up right now, every once in a while I'll see it and I'll go, oh, I'm going to take a picture of that one because that's worth remembering. And it says, the one that's up right now says, time is currency we spend without knowing the balance. Use it wisely.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And at 77, I'm very more aware of that than I would have been earlier. But, time is currency we spend without knowing the balance. Use it wisely.
Yeah.
That one I love. And the other one I loved that they had years ago was, if you have to walk through hell, walk through like you own the place. And I think with those two things, you can go pretty far with both those mottos.
It's always funny. A place is right on the edge of Toluca Lake over there in Burbank. I passed that place a million times, too, and gotten certain amount of joy from looking up at those signs.
Yeah.
And it's a little bygone era, where people, like, I could remember all of the, like, when people, they're not going to do this at a Starbucks, and they're not going to do it at Home Depot. It has to be, everything when we grew up was privately owned shops, transmission shops and wood shops and shops, and then once you own the place, you were free to put up whatever you wanted on that thing.
Right.
And also sometimes strangely have a cat that lived in your shop that would always hang out. Like, that's Rusty's fine. He'd be standing, he'd just be on the counter while you were talking to somebody. But they'd put these things up, and I like the ones that got a little aggressive, like, especially if you deal with transmission guys or car guys or engine, guys who rebuild engines. They'd have like little signs that say, like, it'll take a week and cost $1,000, but if you try and help, it's 2 weeks and $2,000. Like, like trying to insult you a little.
That's right.
Or they'd have another one of a little character laughing, rolling on the ground, laughing, saying, "You want it when?" It's like, well, that's a weird message.
Yeah, let you know right up front.
Right up front. You don't know anything.
Yeah.
If you try to help, you're going to screw this up.
Yeah.
And you want it when. Yeah. And also, there used to be, I just saw it on a van in Florida. They'll go like, you can have it cheap and fast, or it can be expensive and good, but it's not going to be both, or something like that. Like, they were managing your expectations when you walked in.
It's going to take longer than you think and cost more than you think. So what?
And stores had a smell.
Yeah.
Like the hobby shop smelled different than the tire place.
Yeah.
It smelled different than the wood place.
Yeah.
It smelled different than the transmission place.
Hey, I go back to when there was a chicken store on the west side of Chicago where you can get live chickens. I mean, well, you didn't buy it live. You went in; they were live in the cages, and then you say, "Okay, get that chicken," and they take it in the back, and you hear whack.
Wow.
And then it comes in and give it wrapped in the brown paper. But the smell of walking in there, I'll never forget, because you've got a little 400 square foot store with live chickens in boxes. It's like, nah, you just want to get the chicken and go, But
my grandmother used to tell me stories because she's been out in Los Angeles very early. She said, you drive down Sunset and there'd be bean fields everywhere. But then also where the Comedy Store was, she said, that's where we get our chickens. Like that chickens where the Comedy Store was. I mean, look, I suppose, because if you go to the La Brea tar pits, they have styrofoam mastodons like in the tar pit. And you're like, I guess there was something before that Chevron station was
of
here,
course,
right? Like,
absolutely.
it was all there, or not.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I guess the weird part, it's easy to go to La Brea tar pits and know that there was wolves and woolly mammoths running around La Brea, mid-Wilshire area, but I wasn't alive.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
chicken part you did. That part you lived through.
Yeah, that I lived through. I was very young, and in fact, there was the Mama Celeste was Italian restaurant there, and that's the one that became the
frozen pizza,
the frozen pizza and the frozen raviolis. But it started as this little restaurant on Kedzie Avenue in Chicago.
That was Mama Celeste.
Mama Celeste, yeah.
Because we got her frozen pizzas
Well, there
out
you
here.
go. In fact, I saved their delivery truck because I was because it was right. I walked to school. I went to Mother Cabrini, which is just a couple blocks past it. I remember walking there, and they had a little Jeep that they delivered stuff in, and they had those. The seats were kind of like almost straw in the Jeep. The delivery guy must have dropped a cigarette. The seat was on fire.
Yeah, I think it's
flaming.
like wicker or rattan or something like that.
That kind of thing. It was burning. So I go in the restaurant. I said, you know what? I think your truck's on fire. And they came out and said, oh, thanks, kid. I think they gave me like a gravy sandwich or something. And they put it out, But
did you know Chef Boyardee? Did you have any run-ins?
No, with Chef Boyardee. In fact, Chef Boyardee, that's like to real Italians, as you can imagine. It was not something you craved.
That little Jeep, as you call it, is I think it's an Italian.
It could have been
little thing.
It was a little tiny Jeep-looking thing.
Look up BMW made. No, that's a different thing. There's a.
This would have been in the 50s. This
Jeep,
would have been
50s Jeep vehicle with wicker seats in it, and I think it was Italian, and they're actually pretty expensive these days.
I don't
if
doubt
you
it.
buy one at an auction, but I can't remember. It's a weird little miniature thing that's got probably. Well, they didn't really make a big. Actually, street legal was a little dubious back then.
Oh yeah,
but we didn't really. Yeah, no. Did BMW make that, or Messerschmitt, or something weird, or was that Italian?
I don't know.
What was? Is that it? Are you looking at that?
No, yeah, I'm looking at it. The thing I remember was a little more squared up.
Oh,
more
there's
like
a
Jeep.
Fiat Jolly. Yeah, Fiat Jolly was what I was trying to think of.
But it's certainly in that ballpark. Probably around the same time.
So, what about now versus then? And then, is it better now? Was it better then? Okay, would you rather be an 18-year-old now or an 18-year-old then, when you grew up?
Oh, I'll take it. I'll take what I got. I'll take what I've got. I'll take the 18-year-old then.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's just like, I can't relate. But yet then I think to myself, well, this is what when I used to talk to my dad, like, what are you talking about? It's that. I get it. Each generation is going to become the generation that you've been behind. In other words, we become our fathers, we become our grandfathers, and so I get it. So for me to think that I could put myself into that place today, me now 18 now in this world, no, I'd have to learn too much. I'd have to actually really learn how a phone works and how every aspect of a computer works, which I don't. And of course, my daughter, laughs at me and yells at me. No, you should know, Dad. Your phone can do this, and this. But I'm not interested in it. It doesn't matter. I'm waiting for where I can just say, do this, and it'll do it. I know we're getting close.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I've accepted the fact that my memories are strong and good, and but it wasn't perfect. Look, we had to go through a lot. I think we are evolving, and that's one thing that makes me nuts when people almost like deny evolution, almost like saying, "Oh yeah, no, you should go back and do this and forget about medicine and forget about this and that." It's like, no, there's a reason we started as cavemen, and now have been to hopefully next going to Mars for whatever. So what are we evolving toward? I don't know. But I'm not going to be a part of it. But I'm glad I got the slot I've got, and I'm good with it. I'm good with having been in that slot. No reason for me to be in this one now. Let the 18-year-olds deal with that. Ask them when they're in their 70s.
Yeah. The only thing I kind of think about is there was a naivete that we had because we just weren't exposed to everything all the time.
Right.
And it's like, I realize now I know the name of probably 12 terrorist organizations that I've never even heard anything that sounded like it when I was young.
Right.
I didn't know about all the stuff that I didn't want to know about. Whatever was going on in the Middle East was their business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And your business was sort of what was in front of you.
Right.
And there was a kind of simplicity to it. You could call it a naivete, but it made for more sanity, I think, because you didn't have to figure out, about the worst we would hear is there's kids in Africa that don't have food, so finish your food, and you'd go, all right, it's probably somebody in Africa somewhere. Yeah. But that's about as far as it got.
But then depending who you're talking to of that era, if we're talking about kids in Africa, what about the African-American kids here back then? They may have a whole different, they're going to come at it with a whole different kind of story. Their story is going to be different than mine and yours, and their perspective is going to be different because they were facing, some, different kinds of prejudice or this, that, and the other that hopefully are moving toward, getting away from,
Well, I grew up in Southern California. And so I talk to people I know grew up in Louisiana and stuff, and they have a very different version of those subjects than I did.
Right.
Because I grew up in L.A., and it was always like, I had black friends and Mexican friends, and they played on the same teams, and nobody knew, no one cared. There wasn't a thing because I just grew up in L.A.
Right.
L.A. was totally different. We didn't really have this neighborhood and that neighborhood. It was just kind of the San Fernando Valley.
Right.
It just ran around, and then you play football, and there'd be a couple of black guys, a couple of Mexican guys, and a couple of white guys, and that was about it. Sleep over at their house, hang out, play with them and stuff. So we never. I realize I got insulated from a lot of the world because LA was always so, I guess progressive, what you call it, but my family was sort of chillax atheist types who never cared what you were. We'd sit around and watch Roots, all 8 episodes of Roots, and my mom would just go, "Do you see how bad white people are?" And I'd go, "Yeah, I know, but aren't we? We didn't own anything, did we? We're not the Carollas. We could have owned. We don't own anything now. Where's our plantations?" But it was weird because it was just a bunch of people hanging out, wanting to go to the beach and ride their bikes and stuff.
Yeah.
There wasn't any of this friction or turmoil or whatever. Probably more of it now in LA, which is weird, than there was when I was growing up.
Yeah, no, America is, we're still in, I sometimes have to stop and say to myself, we go through the things we go through, whether it's in politics, this, that, or the other, but I say to myself sometimes, especially part of it from doing the gun show, of doing a show that deals with the histories of other countries that are thousands of years old. Mm-hmm. And I realize, God, we're such a young country. We're still in many ways still finding our way. What we set out with, the Constitution, this, that, and the other, the framework is good. It's all correct. But, you're talking about civilizations, whether it's Egypt or Europe and Italy, France, whatever it may be, Africa. You're talking about civilizations that some of them are thousands of years old. And we're in a whole different category. And we still got a lot to learn. We still got a lot of figuring it out to do, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. But I think what we're trying to do is still it's almost like a shining beacon above it all. Like, yeah, we're the young guys, and we're trying to set the tone for everybody. And it's not always easy, but that's all we got, and on we go.
A good way to go out. The book, it's called Long Branch, and that's written by Dan back there, right?
Yeah, Dan Ramm, my assistant Dan Ramm. It's a wonderful novel. You can get it on Amazon, and like I said, hopefully, we're in talks right now to try to, make it part of showbiz, and I think there's a good shot to do that.
Well, I want to talk to Dan about cleaning off these scuppers. I got a parapet roof up there.
There you go.
Tell Dan I used the torch down, but it's starting to come up. Maybe I can get up there with a little Henry's, do a little spotting for me, and then I want to replace the flashing on top of the parapet. So I'm going to talk to see if he has a good sheet metal guy.
There you go.
And the Tequila, Señor Rio.
Señor Rio.
Available.
Total Wine Stores.
Total Wine Stores
around anywhere in the country.
Joe Mantegna, always great to talk to you,
Adam
my friend.
Carolla, great to talk to you. And one other thing I'll add, Richard Mulligan was born on November 13th as well. Do you remember the great Richard Mulligan,
Yes.
the actor?
Yes, his series.
And Chris Noth.
Christopher
also
Chris
November
Noth
13th.
from Sex and the City.
Right.
And then Richard Mulligan was from
Mulligan was on Soap.
Soap. That's where he was known from.
And he was November 13th.
He's not with us anymore.
No, he passed away, Richard. He was a great human being.
One of these guys where if you just saw him, you go, oh, that guy from those things.
Oh, yeah. He was great. He was just great.
I'm going to be this Friday and this Saturday in San Diego at the American Comedy Club doing 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday, and come out, see me there. And until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Joe Mantegna saying mahalo.